Hey everyone, so this is my review of Gotham, Season 4, Episode 1, called Pax Penguina. And essentially what this episode is about is that Gordon fears that Jonathan Crane might be out in Gotham once again when his father's sort of like fear gas starts to show up in a series of robberies. And Penguin starts on this quest to sort of license crime. And that sort of starts to backfire on him on the night of his grand opening of his new bar called the Iceberg Lounge. And Bruce sort of becomes almost like this vigilante after his sort of run-in with Ra's al Ghul to sort of prep to be able to face him once again someday. And this was a really interesting and really entertaining episode that wasn't that interesting because it was just a lot of sort of setting up and like reintroducing all these characters and sort of bringing everyone back into the mix. So there wasn't a lot to this episode. It was just sort of, like I said, doing that stuff and introducing some stuff. So I did really like what they did do with the idea of like licensing crime, so then only these certain criminals can do crime and anyone else who does it ends up getting killed by Zaz. And I thought that was really interesting with all that, and I really kind of enjoyed it and can't wait to see how that plays out in the future, where like Gordon sort of said, which is how long is it going to take before Penguin starts licensing people to go and murder someone, or how long until these crimes get out of hand. So I'm very curious to see how that's all going to play out and how the GCPD might eventually step in to be like, okay, we're not okay with this anymore. And I did also really like what they did with bringing Crane back into this, and I'm so happy that they did seem to stick with the same actor to play Crane, because that's what I was a bit worried about, is that it's been 3 years I think now since we saw him last, that I was worried that they might pick someone else to make him seem roughly about the same age or somewhere near that, but they didn't, and I'm so happy with that, and I'm so happy with his performance of Crane sort of slowly going insane and slowly becoming the Scarecrow by the end of this episode, because like I've said in previous things, the Scarecrow is probably one of my favorite Gotham villains out there. So far with what they did to sort of give him a bit of his own origin story was so great, and I can't wait to see what they're going to do with him next. And now everything with Bruce and him sort of being this vigilante was okay for a starter. With him sort of stopping people from getting robbed on the streets and doing all that stuff, I was fine with. But then him sort of starting to get a bit over his head was a little annoying, with him going and straight up confronting Penguin about these crime license and sort of trying to get a confession out of him. That was a bit too much, and I'm happy that they did have Alfred there to sort of almost like hold his hand and sort of stop him from getting too much into his head and too much into this. So I'm happy that they do have somewhat of a guard there, but still it was annoying that they even attempted it. Then the moments with Selena were alright, with her sort of going and taking the next steps to sort of becoming Catwoman, where she's learning how to master the whip and how to fight better than how she's fought in previous seasons. And that I'm very happy with how they arranged and how they did all that stuff. And then the moments with Penguin and him sort of dealing with these criminals using Crane's fear gas to sort of try and stop Penguin, and just everything sort of circling around him in this episode was very interesting with how he dealt with all of it. And now I'm very curious to see where they're going to take his story now that he has been infected with this fear gas, and I'm very curious to see how long does this fear gas actually last. If it is somewhat of like a permanent thing like with what happened to Crane, or if they are going to eventually find some sort of like cure, or if it does just eventually wear off after a certain amount of time. I'm very curious to see how all that's going to play out for Penguin. And I do just have to say, overall, this was a really great sort of like introductory episode back into this season and back into the mix of Gotham, but it wasn't the greatest episode of Gotham out there, but I definitely am very curious and very excited to see where they are going to take the Scarecrow storyline for at least this first half of the season. And so yeah, that's my review of Gotham, Season 4, Episode 1, called Pax Penguina. So yeah, bye!